In the world of military aviation, the Messerschmitt Me is often regarded as a technological breakthrough, representing the first operational jet-powered fighter aircraft. It was an aircraft that demonstrated Germany's cutting-edge engineering during World War II. This revolutionary fighter plane was designed and built by the Messerschmitt Company, and it ultimately became an important weapon of the Luftwaffe's operations in the latter stages of the war. In this video, we discuss the history of the Me-262, including its creation and its impact on the war. If you enjoy this video and want to see more, hit the subscribe button. It's free and really helps the channel reach more history lovers like you. Prior to the Me-262, the German Luftwaffe's primary fighter aircraft were the Bf-109 and the Focke-Wulf 190. These planes were known for their maneuverability, speed, and firepower. They were essential in the early stages of the war, as they allowed Germany to establish air superiority throughout every theatre they fought in. However, as the war progressed, the limitations of these aircraft became apparent. They lacked the range and speed necessary to engage Allied bombers at high altitude, which was becoming an increasingly significant challenge as Germany was bombarded day after day. The solution to this problem was the pulse jet engine, which was invented by German engineer Paul Schmidt in 1934. This engine used a series of combustion chambers to generate thrust, making it much more powerful than a traditional propeller engine. The Me-262 was designed with this engine in mind, and the first prototype took to the skies in 1941. Its performance was impressive, reaching speeds of up to 870 kilometers or 540 miles an hour. Its altitude was up to 37,000 feet. However, it wasn't until 1944 that the Me-262 entered service with the Luftwaffe. Taking a closer look at the specifications of the 262, it was 10 meters or 32 feet in length, 12 meters or 39 feet in width, and had a gross weight of around 7,000 kilograms. Its maximum speed was previously mentioned, but its range was out to 1,000 kilometers or 650 miles. Its propulsion was due to two Junkers turbojet engines. It was armed with four 30mm cannons in the nose, but it also had the ability to hold up to 24 rockets or two large bombs. With this came a number of variants, including one which sported a large 50mm cannon protruding from the nose. This feature was for heavy ground support or mostly for hitting Allied bombers with a knockout punch. Further variants had up to 6 30mm cannons and versions built as a night fighter. The creation of the 262 was a technological breakthrough for Germany during World War II. However, the manufacturing of the aircraft was not without its challenges. The biggest problem was the lack of resources, which made it difficult to produce the plane on a large scale. Additionally, the factories that produced the Me-262 were often targeted by Allied bombing, which further hampered production. In fact, it is estimated that 1 out of every 4 262s produced were destroyed on the ground by Allied bombing. To combat this, the Germans had to move production to areas that were less accessible to Allied bombers, such as underground mines and forests. But it was perhaps the lack of available fuel that became the biggest hindrance. Another challenge, though, was the insistence of Adolf Hitler to use the Me-262 as a bomber rather than a fighter. This decision was made despite objections from the aircraft's designers, who argued that the aircraft was more effective as a fighter. This change in strategy caused delays in the production, as modifications had to be made to the aircraft to allow it to carry bombs. Despite these challenges, the 262 proved to be a formidable fighter aircraft when it was finally introduced to the front lines. In one particular sortie in March 1945, 37 Me-262s attacked a formation of 1,200 Allied bombers and fighters. The 262s destroyed or damaged over 25% of the Allied aircraft, while only losing 3 of their own planes. This demonstrated the effectiveness of the Me-262 in combat. But this wasn't the whole story. Many accounts of Allied pilots flying P-51 Mustangs and Hawker Tempests accounted for aerial victories over the 262. Even though it had the speed and manoeuvrability, it wasn't immune to Allied bullets. Overall, a total of 1,400 262s were built, with a relatively low number of less than 300 being used in combat. Exact numbers are not known as proper documentation is scarce. The same can be said for the 262's aerial victories, which are estimated at around 540 Allied aircraft destroyed, including nearly half of those from heavy bombers. As far as their own losses, again with the later stages of the war going on, statistics weren't kept as often or were destroyed in the fallout. Rough estimates put their losses in the air at around 1 to 200. Perhaps though the main issue for the Germans was the lack of skilled pilots to put them in the air. Especially in the dying stages of the war, many veteran pilots were either being taken prisoners by the Allies or dying in aerial duels. It's worth noting that the impact of the Me-262 was limited due to its late introduction to the war. By the time it was in service, Allied air superiority was already established, and Germany's defeat was inevitable. The aircraft was a remarkable technological achievement, representing a significant milestone in the development of jet-powered fighter aircraft. Following the Second World War, a rush for technological advancements began with the Western nations and the Soviet Union. With this came further and more advanced jet-powered aircraft. Many nations would begin experimenting with various fighters, bombers, and new-age stealth aircraft, all utilizing the jet engine. But not only that, it ushered in a new age for civilian flight, allowing people to travel across the world at a much faster rate than before. So thanks to the Me-262, the first operational jet-powered fighter aircraft, we now have the modern-day aircraft we know and love. What do you think about the Messerschmitt Me-262? If developed earlier, could it have changed the war? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to expand your knowledge and join the growing Premier History community.